Good afternoon, people. This is Amar, A Marvelous, back again with another video. This video I got to hear wild and crazy today because this is a crazy place we living in. So, you know what I'm saying? We got to hear to match the craziness. So, today we talking about what happened here in New York City, right? In Brooklyn, which is where I'm located. I got my son behind the camera today. You know, he's participating. So yeah, I just wanted to put this down because something told me to definitely do this video. I have a lot of ideas for videos, but I don't get to them. But this one, I said I had to act to it. So without further ado, is this event organic, or is this something that was orchestrated in advance to further along certain agendas and push certain things forward that will benefit a select few people that are pulling the strings in this country and in this planet? So that's what this video is going to cover. I know a lot of people were like, oh God, here we go again. You know, another conspiracy theorist. I don't know when in this country we became allergic to conspiracies, because this is something that's just the way of American land. This country was supposedly founded by individuals that were unhappy of where they were in another part of the world over there in Europe, and so they rebelled and revolted and they founded this country. That's a conspiracy, okay? So this whole country was founded by people that participated in conspiracies. So I don't know when the memo was sent out where people are allergic to these things. So I wanted to set that down. Now, today, early in the morning, there was a supposed bomb scare. Somebody supposedly open shooting in New York subways, right? The R train, if I'm not mistaken. Now, most of these things that you see in the media is staged. They're not organic. What do I mean by that? There's different levels of staged and organic, because I have the morons argue with me about what that means. So I'm going to be clear on what I'm saying. Something that's natural and organic. When you wake up, you brush your teeth, you wake up and you go to work, you wake up and you do things that are called to do based on something that you in your right mind decide to do. That is organic. So when I say these events are not organic, that means that they are planned in advance. They are set in motion kind of like a script, meaning that they have something that's already laid out. And when it's already laid out, that means that there are characters, there are individuals that participate to make what's already laid out happen and go in motion, as opposed to somebody saying that I'm going to go do this, or somebody being as mentally unstable, something triggering in their mind to go conduct these acts. These are not what those are. So here are some ways you could tell that this event, as well as many others, I'm pretty sure is staged. Number one, where's the footage? Right? Now, I'm in New York, and New York, a lot of New Yorkers, right, they are news heavy. And when you watch the news, it's barely a day that can go by without you seeing somebody get mugged, or the news showing some video, right, or some crime. Clearly, these are available. In this instance today, there's zero footage of anybody placing any kind of bomb or anything related to a bomb on New York subways. There's just not. Okay? That's flag number one. Flag number two, New York is probably the most surveilled place on planet Earth, especially here in America. And New York subways is highly surveilled. So if this was something that was organic, where's the footage from A to Z of showing someone putting something in the train, someone opening fire? Of course you won't see this. You won't see this because these things are planned and these are staged. So these are signs when you see these events, not just this one, but in general, the first question you should ask is, show me the entire footage from A to Z. We've never had this much surveillance in the history of planet Earth. And yet every time we see these events, we never see clear footage. We always see still shots. We always see the same footage looped over and over again. But we never see from A to Z at the time that this happens anything that takes place to show that this is something that's organic. That's flag number two. Flag number 3. They identified this gentleman as a gentleman who was a black man at 5'5". Now, they said he was wearing a gas mask, and they said that he had on a green construction vest. Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, not the sharpest tool in the shed, but if he had a gas mask, and to my knowledge, gas masks cover your face, maybe they have some other ones, how did they know that this was a black man? Even if he had no gloves and his dark skin, there's plenty of races and ethnicities that have dark skin. How do they know that this person is a black man? Because they said they had no footage. They didn't show any footage. So if there's no footage, how do they know he's 5'5"? All of a sudden now, everybody on the train, the eyewitnesses, are spot on with the description of human beings where they can give an exact height description, right? So if there's no footage that was shown to us, which there hasn't been, how do they know he's a black man that's 5'5" if he had a gas mask on? That's what I would like to know. Why? Because this is staged, okay? That's that. Where's the footage? He has a bright green construction vest on. There should be some footage. They say he posed as an MTA worker. This is another red flag. So where's the footage of MTA workers, possible suspects, where they show that he had a bright green vest on? At least, forget the gas mask, at least the bright green vest. That's at a 5'5" height, that's male, right? Wouldn't that narrow down the suspects? Of course you won't see this. You won't see this because this is fugazi. We don't even know if there was anybody doing anything. These could have been sounds. This could have been fireworks. There was no evidence right yet of any shooter. Anytime you see these events, this is what happens. They never show you footage. When you see the Capitol riots, they show you the same stupid videos of people with Viking hats on and rummaging inside and spinning around in chairs, but they never show you A to Z, how they got into the building, how they broke in. They never show you that. And then as time goes on, what do? They unleash new footage. They did it with George Floyd. They do it with all of these events. Why? Because these things are not organic. You might have real people participate in them. You might have people that are along with it. You might even have people that actually die. Because I argue with someone over this. Oh, people died. And yet it turns out, let's say they do die. But I guarantee you that the person they said was involved has some kind of military experience, some kind of FBI or CIA affiliation, or previously worked with the government in some capacity. Also a red flag. So I'm going to tell you how this is going to go down. Go back to this video after I say this and check it and leave a comment to see if I'm accurate or inaccurate. They're going to catch this person, if there is a person that did it, right? Well, they're going to release that someone did it and that he was caught between now and Friday. I give it by Sunday, the latest. And he's either going to have killed himself, he's either going to have been killed by law enforcement, or if they do catch him, he's going to look like he's drugged up and doesn't know where he's at. Why do I say this? Because every time you see events like this is what always happens. Always. And this is sign of Manchurians. These are sign of what's called elite serial killers, which is a book that I recommend, by the way. It's called Elite Serial Killers. And in this book, they explain how there's people that are actually trained to carry out assignments like this one you've seen in Brooklyn today, or high-level assassinations, and they are taken through different institutions, of course, by the government, and they are trained. Their brain and mind is programmed in order to carry out certain missions and to carry out certain orders given certain cues. So whatever those cues are, when they see these cues, these elite serial killers, these cues activate something in their brain to carry out the instructions that was programmed within them when they was in a traumatized state. Now you could look up Manchurian candidates, you can look up OSS and Operation Paperclip during the Korean War. This is where all of these things started. So anytime you see these events, this is what's going on. Now the question becomes, and I'll get back to other red flags, but these are just the basic red flags that you can apply to any of these situations. I guarantee it, like clockwork. Now, why? there's certain agendas that's been going on for decades, right? Um, Getting the jabby jab. This is something that's been going on before Casper virus. They have been attempting, the people in power have been attempting to get the world jabbed up way back, at least since the 60s, and maybe even the 50s or before. The other agenda is obviously now, as time progresses, is to regulate guns. America is the most heavily armed place on planet Earth. This is the last place that has had the courage and the strength and willpower to fight for their right to bear arms. Almost everywhere else on the planet Earth, like Australia, New Zealand, and all of these places, they didn't have the backbone and they showed cowardice. And Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, these places, they don't really have weapons, right? So they didn't fight for their rights. And now, as you see, when this planet was locked down, where are the places that got the most violations in terms of their human rights? These places that don't have weapons. So America is the most heavily armed place in the country, in the world, pardon me. And they say there's about, 320 million Americans? There's about 390 million firearms. That means that the average person that owns a firearm most likely is going to have more than one. So there's more guns in America than there are citizens. So this is the place, the last stand for a complete and total lockdown, as opposed to shifting how the planet's going to run in terms of being more controlled. America is the focal point of the planet. And that focal point within the planet is New York. They're the focal point for disease and viruses and the jabby jab, and they're the focal point for how weapons go. Okay? Now, New York is one of 5 states that has the lowest gun violence in America. Now, they have the lowest gun violence because they have the most restrictive gun laws. So you have New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, right? These places also have the least amount of guns because of the legislation. Now, I find it curious, going back to this Brooklyn bombing incident, for those people that are in New York, if you go back to your news just yesterday, believe today is Tuesday, April 12th. On Monday, April 11th, in New York news, there was actually a bomb scare yesterday in Manhattan, in Times Square. So if you pull this up, right, this was just yesterday, and when you look at the news clip, it says people thought it was a bomb scare, but it was not. It was just, I think, a pipe explosion or something like that. It was just an underground explosion. And then when you watch the clip, it shows people running. So why do I bring that up? Anytime you see these things in the news, in the media, movies, television, you got to put the pieces together. Just yesterday, they had this bomb supposed scare, but it was an explosion, but it wasn't no kind of terrorist or bomb explosion. And also yesterday, you had in New York, they were talking about what's called ghost guns. You had the mayor speaking about these ghost guns because supposedly in New York, there's been a rise in gun violence. That could also be propaganda. And you had Joe Biden talking about what's called these ghost guns. Guns that you can order different parts from different places and then put it together, and they don't have serial numbers, and it's perfectly legal. So if you look at everything that culminated up to today's supposed bombing and shooting, you'll see that there's a narrative being painted again about the dangers of guns and about how dangerous it is becoming in New York. Okay, so you have to look at that. So anytime you're talking about any type of gun violence, any kind of terrorism, it's going to always lead you back to the conversation of legislation against guns. I don't care what anybody says. I'm in New York, so I can talk this, all right? So being that you had Joe Biden talking about ghost guns and you had New York talking about these ghost guns all weekend, it's kind of strange that this happened today in Brooklyn, of all places, the most populated borough. Now let's get back to these red flags. Again, like I said, you never see camera footage of these incidences. And what happened? Lo and behold, today, they say at the station, the train station that this allegedly took place, the cameras were down. What's the odds of that, right? All of a sudden now, All of this went down, and the cameras were down at this station. But yet, we have all of these same images of people running out of smoke-filled train cars, of people laid on the ground, people running in terror, right? And it was said, according to CBS, that the only thing they had was still shots. Now, I was watching CBS News, and they had this CBS security analyst who clearly knew the height of the supposed person, if there's a real person. They knew all of these details about this person, but there was no video. How do they know the details about this person if they're telling you that the cameras were down at this station and that there's no footage capturing him and he's still on the run? Now, explain this to me in the comment section. I want all skeptics to explain that to me if this is something that's organic. How did they know he was 5'5"? How did they know he was black? How did they know all of this if the cameras was down at that station? How did they know this? Right? That's suspect. Then come to find out he's driving a U-Haul truck. So now this man is on the run with a damn U-Haul truck. And then they said that they found the bag with the supposed explosives already. So where's the footage of this gentleman in heavily surveilled New York subways placing these explosions anywhere in the train? Where is it? Where's the footage of this man opening shots in the subway cars? Where? All of a sudden now in the trains there's no surveillance, right? It would seem to me that if there was someone with a gas mask that had bags with him, 5'5" black man with a green vest posing as an MTA worker, clearly there would be something that would show some footage of a person like that. Nowhere in the entire New York subway do we have any photos of anybody entering any station with a gas mask that's 5'5", that's a black man with a green construction vest. None of that. During rush hour, with facial recognition, all type of smartphones, nobody captured any of this images. But yet we see still shots. And when you watch the news, here's another red flag. Whether it's Capitol riots, whether it's some kind of fake-ass terrorist shooting, you will always see the media play the same footage over and over again. Never an A to Z timeline. They'll keep repeating the same still images. Who so happen to be capturing all this when it happens? When you see somebody like a black man running from white men in the South, who's capturing all this? When you see a white man running from a black man somewhere and it's some kind of racial incident, where's the footage? Who's capturing all this? Who's always ready with a damn camera to capture this? Here's another red flag. These events are going through a timeline. You can always tell a type of stage events like clockwork depending upon what type of event it is. If it's the summertime, you can almost guarantee national headlines of black people getting killed by police. That's during the hot months. You will not see a wide array or any stories of black people getting killed by police during the cold months. And that goes back to the Kerner Commission and all the riots. And I got into that in other videos. So they'll stage all race narratives when it comes to blacks getting killed by whites in the hot months leading up to the summertime and during the summertime. Those stage events take place then. As July comes, they switch from the racial killings of black people getting killed by whites, especially cops. And when July comes, you have what's called adjacent months. July, August, September, October, November. They switch from that and then they start staging events based on national or global terrorism. Like 9/11 happened during adjacent months, right? September. Las Vegas happened during November, the adjacent months. So from July to November, Jason, July, August, September, October, November, that's what the acronym is for Jason, those 5 months. They switch from blacks getting killed by cops to a whole different way of staging these events to these massive amount of terrorism. After November, leading up to the holidays, then they switch and they give you something completely out the blue that you might not expect, like a Capitol riot, which happened in January. So now they take a pause from mass shootings, they take a pause from something like the 9/11 and blacks getting killed by cops, and then they give you the Capitol riots. Or they might give you a big court case or something of that matter. So they switch from one staged event to another. So then from January to April, that's what they give you. And then April is what's called killing season. If you Google April killing season, you'll see what I mean. How a good portion of these terrorist shootings, these school shootings, they happen in April, right? So April now begins killing season. And here we are in April, right? So April now you have this Brooklyn shooting, because this is the beginning of killing season. So between now and let's say next month and then June, you're going to have these type of things happen. And then once the summertime comes, we're going to go back to blacks being killed by cops. This is how in the calendar they stage these events all the time. And they don't deviate from it. And this is how you know that this stuff is not organic. Okay? When George Floyd happened, that was in May, right? Leading up to the summertime, right? All of these things happen on a timeline. So when you see events like this, you have to question. One, where's the footage? Two, if there's no footage, how do they have all of these details? Three, why do they keep showing the same still images and the same photos all the time? Four, we don't even know if this was an actual person doing anything. These could have been sound effects. Where's the victims at? Who got shot? Are we going to see the victims? Right? The supposed person that they know, that they claim did it, that's on the run in the U-Haul truck, 10 to 1, he's going to be diagnosed as mentally ill. Because that's the narrative. They make it look like it's a lone wolf, a random act of violence. He was mentally ill. And then days later, they're going to show images of his family. Then they're going to have interviews with the family and friends. And then they're going to testify how he had a history of being isolated and how he had a history of being withdrawn, or how I can't believe it happened, right? It never fails. Then as weeks go on, they're going to show you more footage. Then you're going to have unreleased footage from the subway that they just couldn't show you the first week of. But then later on, just like the Capitol riots, they're going to have all of this unreleased footage that they doctored up based on our reactions so they can funnel it to make it look like it's not orchestrated and then paint a narrative. And then following, you're going to see talks about gun legislation. Now, I find it ironic that in New York, there's currently a Supreme Court decision, right, that's being weighed, whether or not New Yorkers should have the right to open carry, because New York is one of 8 states that follow something called good reason. So what good reason is, especially in places like New York, is if you want to carry a gun, open carry in public, you need the permission of pretty much state officials. And the state officials have to declare if it's a good reason. If it's a good reason, then you can carry openly in public. But almost everybody gets denied for carrying openly in public. So this is what's going on in the Supreme Court right now in New York. So when you look at the whole New York narrative, the fact that Governor Cuomo put New York under a state of emergency, and then Governor Hochul, whatever her name is, kept New York under a state of emergency, and then after Trump got out of office, we switched from racism to gun violence. Now you see a rise of gun violence in New York. You see a rise of Asian hate. None of this happened during Trump, but now it happened during Biden administration with the Democrats being in power. Now you have all of this culminating back to a regularly scheduled program. Where was all of this terrorist stuff and all of this stuff during the Trump administration? You know why it was non-existent? Because we had to focus on racism. We had to focus on making Trump a racist to get him up out of here. Now that that's no longer the focus, people are being funneled back to what was before him. Staged events, China, and everything else that's staged. So that's the name of the game of what's going on right now. So remember, the next few weeks, you're going to see news stories. You're going to see him be mentally ill. They're going to orchestrate this person who we don't even know is real. And you're going to see a whole narrative being painted. And it's going to lead us to the talks about gun legislation. And it's going to lead to further crackdowns in New York to block this Supreme Court decision. And it's going to lead to a nationwide push that's been happening for decades to further restrict your gun rights. And that's what this was about based upon what we know so far. If anyone says that this is hogwash, please leave it in the comment section. Logic only, the emotions we could leave out of it. This thing, in my opinion, so far, based on what I see, is staged. And if it's not staged, then we need to find out why there's no footage And we need to find out how they knew this person was 5'5" with a green vest on, and there's no footage of anybody opening shots up. Where's the eyewitnesses that seen the gun? What kind of gun was it? They said they found magazine shells. They found magazines on the site, and they have a bag with all of this supposed bomb stuff there. Where's the footage of him bringing this on the train? I'm sure there has to be in all of New York subway, which is the most intricate transportation system on the planet. Where's the footage of anybody with a gas mask that's 5'5" with a bright green vest with bags that open shots that do a smoke bomb? They said the train car went from, I think it was 26 or something, to 34th Street. So in between stops, where's the footage of somebody opening shots? Where's the eyewitnesses that said that they saw shots? Where? Because it didn't happen. I'm going out on a limb. And with that, I rest my case. Another staged event brought to you by the people in power, your institutions, and this is A Marvelous signing off. Peace.